Hi, everybody. I want to continue my trend of offering a wrap up on the half moon phases. It's easier to talk about the beginning of the half month rune and what they mean. It's a little harder for me to give a wrap up on them, so it's cathartic. Why not tell everybody? We are finishing up Wunjo today and moving into Hagalaz, which is probably one of the biggest speed bumps of the entire Elder Futhark arc. Wunjo is the high note of the entire Futhark. Arc. It's I've said this before, it's the rune that everybody wants in their rune casts. It means joy. And all of the first et this runic cycle has been different. I mean, it's different every time. That's not saying anything. That doesn't mean anything. But this time it's been more like shadow aspects. It's been more challenging to sit with. Like if we had reversed half month runes, that's this whole year so far. And Wunjo was no different. And that's hard to hear. That's hard to sit with when this is the highlight. When this is the highlight of the Futhark. Arc. Wunjo this time for me indicated that joy is sometimes hard won. And that's not what we're taught. Like, we're taught that joy is spontaneous, it bubbles up from within you, it finds you in the atmosphere. And there's also this passive projection that if you don't experience joy on a regular basis, it's your fault. And if you don't recognize joy or know how to sustain joy when you feel it, it's also your fault. And that you're doing something wrong, that you're showing up wrong somehow. And I realized a long time ago that I've bought into that to some degree. There is a projection that I carry around that. And also a long time ago realizing that I didn't really know what joy felt like. And I had to work like to find a memory in my life that was absolute rapturous, just blissful joy. I had to go way back, and it was subtle. I had to put myself in a place where I was open, sort of trance like, probably trance like, and just to drift back to the first time that I felt joy, or the best, um, most fully recalled moment that I felt joy. And what I drifted back to was being with my cousins at like 7 years old, 8 years old at the county fair. Yep, Wayne County Fair. And it was the most fun ever. I mean, you can't be embodied. You can't not be embodied, is what I mean to say, when you're having that much fun when you're a little kid. And it was everything. It was the lights, it was the dirt in your nose, it was the candied apples, and it was riding the rides and feeling like I was going to be sick but not being sick, and eating french fries, all of it. It was just the most fun I could ever have, and with the only people on the planet that I wanted to be with at that time. It was sheer joy. And that was the point that I learned, if you can find a memory, if you can locate a memory, if it's a split second, if you can locate a memory of joy, you can recall it anytime, and your nervous system responds by feeling joy in the present. So that memory has become something that I held on to when I needed to remember that in the present, when I needed to remember joy in the present, when I needed an experience of joy in the present. That's what I bring back in my felt sense and my full like recapitulation of joy. And so this time, yes, that, but life doesn't stop, right? In the process of all the regulation, all the things. And this time it's been more an experience of joy, like as a byproduct, as an unexpected but welcomed outcome of inner work, of things that have needed to come up in this timing, and of being able to address them in this timing, and seeing that in the moment for what it is. People ask me all the time, like about shadow aspects. They're like, are they only from your childhood? Or, because in the beginning of shadow work, it is from your childhood. They're the first ones, right? They're the first ones that you formed. They're the ones that have more informed any shadow aspects that formed subsequently. So yes, at the beginning, you tend to have a lot of child shadow aspects. But I think that there's a similar thing with joy. Like, yes, we can form shadow aspects as an adult, but ideally, when you become really well versed in shadow tending, you feel them when they're forming. You recognize the dynamics where you're like, let me pause on this. Let me think about how I'm about to react or respond here. And I think something about that is true with joy also. Like we have the capacity to have joyful moments in our present, but it seems like, at least for now, in this time, not just me personally, but collectively, what's happening on the planet, they come as the result of things that you are tending about yourself, things that you're healing about the world that you're in. And that's all right. I'll take it. Do feel compelled to talk a little bit about the transition from Wunjo to Hagalaz. It's huge. You talk about a speed bump, moving from an experience of joy, which in the context in how I work with the Elder Futhark, which is how is it alive? How is it animistic in this moment, in these relationships, for me and my relationship to the world? I'm doing hand signals. Um, and that is when we all work together. Like that's what we arrive at the end of the first ed, is we've figured out how, when we soul inform but we do it as a collective, look at the amazing things that happen. That is joyful, that is fully embodied, that is belonging, that is interdependence. And then we shift into the second et with Hagalaz, which is so much about life interfering. Whether we should view it as an interference or we shouldn't, it's just normal. Tiwaz happens. Um, we move into Hagalaz, and it's abrupt change. And it's usually change that we know about. It's not fully out of the blue. It's the kind of change that we know is part of a lifetime. It's part of what happens, and we have to be able to adapt. That's how I approach Hagalaz. But a deeper component of Hagalaz is the memory of Wunjo. Like part of Scar, which is what happens with change, right? We realize a growing point, a place in who we are has to stretch. It has to become something more than who we are without knowing where it's going and with not liking where it's been. That is true scar. That is true wound, injury territory. And we have to figure out how we're going to be okay with that, how we're still going to have a life. And that's where the memory of joy comes in. That's where the capacity to recapitulate it within your nervous system from places of true joy in your past is important. That's what gets you through Hagalaz. That's what gets you through scarring, and understanding that scarring is still a place of potential. What's your joyful moment? What's the thing that every time you think of it, you hold that feeling in your body, it brings you back up. It brings you where you want and need to be. That's what we have to be able to do. That's what we have to be able to recognize the need for in our own lives, and somehow be that for each other.